What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good to see you, gang. Little day off yesterday, not a full day off, but with the tiny slate, we didn't have a show. It was early start, 3-gamer, so didn't feel compelled to jump on, but missed you guys. Hopefully somebody had some success out there. We were full content. We'll also get into the schedule for the next few days. Going to be usual weekend routine, just content, no shows, but then Monday is going to be another content-only day, just to talk about upcoming stuff. Going to be finally doing the memorial for that dude who died a couple months ago at this point, family member. But finally doing that on Monday, so I'll be out of commission on Monday, but we'll have everything updated on the site, and then maybe not get to the confirmed lineups. But anyway, good to see you guys. It's hard to get into that to start things off. Good to see you. Happy Friday to those who celebrate. Pretty solid looking slate. We've got the usual crew here already. Lone Wolf's here, Stephen B, Cujo Blue, Travis Wyndham, Anthony Taylor's here. Looks like some of those guys were here early. Hopefully you had fun hanging out for a half hour. Got to get something for that countdown screen going. I know I've got a countdown screen that was made for me, but have not gotten that up and running yet. But one of these days, get some music and like the whole crazy production. What's up, Bob Jones? Good to see you. Lone Wolf's back. So we've got a pretty interesting slate. Solid 10-gamer on both sites. We've got some pretty good pitching. Got some pretty good spots for hitting. Got a really ugly-looking Coors game. Weather, for the most part, pretty good. Really cold in Detroit. Low total there. Is that Detroit or is that in Minnesota? Excuse me. In Minnesota. Excuse me. Detroit at Minnesota for that one. And then a lot of weather in the Coors area, which is going to be problematic for those who love to dive into Coors Field games. A couple of ugly teams in that one, obviously. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. It was like 6-8 weeks ago. I mentioned it on the show because I found out like right before a show that we did. It was probably a basketball show. It's back in February. But it took a while to get everything together and all. But that's going to be on Monday. But yeah, good dude. Talked about him a little bit on that show. We won't go back into it, but thank you, Larry. And that's it. No more, no more condolences. No more nothing. Let's just keep focused. We'll move forward. Blanket appreciation to everybody. Thank you, Bob Jones. I appreciate you too. You're the best as well, my friend. All right, let me get the baseball stuff up on the screen here, so it's not just me jabbering away. So like I was saying, it's a pretty good-looking slate. We've got a lot of the home teams pretty strongly favored. Only a couple of the road teams eking out a favored position on the runs board. Orioles are one of them. Like the looks of the Orioles in this game, they were one of the top-end teams. Obviously, the two Coors teams, but whoever's going to be visiting a Coors pretty much all year is going to be the favored team in most situations. So the Mariners pulling the heavier part of that total. The Blue Jays basically dead even with the Pods in that one. But a lot of the other games, it looks like the Brewers are slightly ahead of the Cards with Freddie Peralta on the mound. A lot of the other games, though, strongly favoring the home team on the run board. Up top, we've got the Rays and the Yankees. 8.5 run total in that one. Yanks favorite at home. Rays in town, 3.74 implied total for the Rays, 4.86 for the Yanks. Looks like a decent spot to get to Yankees. Pretty nice day here. It's 55 degrees, somewhere around there, maybe 60. Nice sunny day. Joker and I just got back from a walk. So I think you can look at that game, look at some of those usual go-to Yankees bats. Athletics at the Guardians. Guardians kind of maybe looking a little bit interesting. They're not showing any kind of power against Joe Boyle, but he's all over the place. So I think it could be one of those spots where we just get a Guardians game where they just base hits and walks and do their thing. We were looking at them the other day against, Garrett Whitlock. And Whitlock ended up, it was exactly that game. He ended up just getting dinked and dunked, and then he came out after, I think, 4. And now he's on the injured list. But it could be one of those spots to consider the Guardians, but they're showing very, very low home run upside. But I think some pretty decent runs scored upside and correlation scoring and everything. Rangers at the Braves. Somebody already mentioned it in chat, but should be. Yeah, Bob Jones mentioned it. Braves going to own Heaney. Should be a really good spot for Braves bats. I think it's a good source for one-offs with some of those hitters. Oh, appreciate that. Lone Wolf dropped the dropped the weatherboard with a weatherboard. I'm not sure whose it is. Might be his, but he's got some weather stuff in the chat there, and some park factors. It looks like. Appreciate that, Lone Wolf. So yeah, Braves against Heaney looks like a pretty solid spot, at very least, to maybe pick off some home run upside, but the Braves are always going to be, one of the top few teams with a Coors team, and actually the Orioles outpaced the Braves in terms of the top spot on the board for stacks. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's up on the site, it was Mariners, Orioles, and then the Braves in terms of how the numbers came out and then how I ranked them. But really like all those spots. The Rangers on the other side, much lower total, 3.81. The Braves all the way up at 5.30. As I've mentioned a few times, this Orioles spot looks pretty decent to me. 4.85 implied total for the O's, 4.25 on the other side for the Royals. Tigers and the Twins. This one's just a 7-run total because, again, it's like 40 degrees. Apparently the wind, according to Roth, the wind is blowing out pretty significantly, but it's a really cold Minnesota night, so it's probably just going to even that out, and we're just going to get a fairly difficult environment in which to stack up a bunch of runs, hit home runs. So just 3.22 for the visiting Tigers, and then the hometown Twins, 3.86. The Cardinals and the Brewers, another low run total. Brewers slightly favored with Freddie Peralta on the mound. Cardinals have given up the most quality starts so far this season to opposing pitchers. A little bit rough for the Cards to start, but a low total there. Kind of looks more like a spot. Maybe consider some shares of Freddie. He's pretty high priced. The Coors Field game, highest total on the board, 10.5 run total there. 5.61 for the Mariners, 5.01 for the Rockies. Two pretty bad offenses. The Mariners definitely have some higher end options than the Rockies do most days. You get the Coors push, you get some bad looking pitching in that one. So if that game plays, it's at least, Coors Field interesting, but the weather is going to be bad. It's going to be cold. It's going to be, I believe the wind is blowing in that one. So it just doesn't look like the best day necessarily to get to Coors, but Vegas still likes it for the run environment. Obviously, things go up there. Excuse me. Toronto at the Padres, another spot that I'm kind of liking. Pods have Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, on the mound. The Blue Jays are pulling at the top end of the lineup anyway, some decent power marks. Looks like maybe a spot where the Blue Jays could succeed at some fairly cheap pricing. So I like them in the late night game, 4.31 total for them, 4.28 on the other side, close on the Vegas line. Mets at the Dodgers, Yamamoto going for the Dodgers, pretty heavily favored at minus 192 favorites, 8.5 run total there, with the Dodgers getting most of it. 5.01 total for the Dodgers, just a 3.6 for the Mets. Diamondbacks at the Giants to round things out. A couple of lefties going in that one. 7.5 run total. Jordan Montgomery making his season debut for the D-backs, and Blake Snell, his third start of the year for the Giants. Snell's been short-started the first two times. I don't know what we should expect from Montgomery. It's basically a duel between two guys who got screwed over by Scott Boras being their agent this year, expecting multi-year $100 million contracts, and ended up working for peanuts comparatively. But pretty low totals, both teams under 4. Diamondbacks have been frisky against lefties, but Snell is very, very good, especially when he's on point. And I expect him to be a little bit more unleashed here. So I don't really love that spot for hitting in that one. Maybe we can get to Snell. We'll take a look at it. Revenge factor for Montgomery since he just fired Boras. Yeah, it's just the innings. He's made 2 starts in AAA so far, and just 7 2/3 total. So I'm not sure exactly what they're thinking innings wise. So it could be a little bit of a tricky spot. Pitching board. Let me resort this and we'll go by DraftKings. There we go. So right out of the gate, just looking at the conditional formatting, a couple of interesting guys right here in the fair value range is like SP2. It looks like a slate where you're going to have to spend on some pitching. There's not a lot of bargain bin quality here. Like, I'm not looking at Tyler Alexander in Yankee Stadium against that Yankees lineup. We're certainly not looking at the Coors Field guys. Dakota Hudson with a single-digit FanDuel projection is very, very not good. I just left it alone because I thought it was funny and nobody was going to go to Dakota Hudson here anyway. Kyle Gibson down the bottom, he's priced similarly to these guys at 73. It's a little bit of a discount. Maybe you could get away with that against the Brewers, but I'd rather probably go to either one of these guys. I don't really like the looks of Alec Marsh. Dean Kremer, not really all that much. We already said Heaney, kind of a disaster against the Braves. Yadiel Rodriguez is kind of interesting in that he's only 5,000. I just think we're probably getting 4 innings, something like that. He's just not stretched out really yet. Short start in the first one, but he was terrific. Looks like a really interesting pitcher that we're going to keep our eye on. But I'm not sure how much we get. But if I'm considering anybody who's not these guys, and well, I didn't mean to click on Waldron. I'm talking about these two guys in terms of the value bin there. It might be Yadiel. You might be able to get away with it on DraftKings for that 5,000 as your SP2. If you get 4 out of him and he finds his strikeouts and doesn't get himself into trouble, obviously, you might get there for that price and what it buys you. On FanDuel, I don't think it's on the board because I don't think we're approaching the quality start and probably not even the win bonus. That game's not on this slate, unfortunately. Washington should get to Verlander. He always starts slow, is Travis's call there. Yeah, that's what, 6 o'clock game? I guess. 6:45 game. Verlander against Mackenzie Gore. Jacob Young, C.J. Abrams, Jesse Winker, Lane Thomas, Luis Garcia, Yoey Meneses, Eddie Rosario, Riley Adams, and Ildemaro Vargas going for the Nationals in that one. 3.8 implied total for them. 4.4 on the other side for the Astros. That's just going by what Labs has up. No Joey Gallo in that lineup for the Nats. But Jesse Winker surging. I would be looking at C.J. Abrams, Jesse Winker off the top, and then probably some Lane Thomas. And I don't know, Luis Garcia has been playing well, but I don't really believe Jacob Young in the leadoff spot. I'd probably maybe even look to Eddie Rosario in the 7. Go like 2, 3, 4, 7. Anyway, quick analysis of a game that's not on this slate. Continue with the pitching board. So these two guys I do think are viable in that like higher mid-range SP2 level. And then you've at least got nobody over 10K at the top of the board. You've got a very fairly priced Joe Ryan in that one at 89. I think that's a terrific looking spot. 94 for Sale is fair. Yamamoto at 96 against that Met squad is pretty fair. Freddie Peralta, where he's priced, especially compared to where FanDuel has him, is dramatic. That's an interesting price. So you've just got a lot of really good pitchers at high prices. Tristan McKenzie's kind of a wild card here in that he hasn't really been good. He hasn't really been striking anybody out. He's been making short starts in his first couple of outings this year, but we know he's a high-end pitcher. He kind of falls into that in-between spot salary-wise. So he's kind of a wrinkle on the slate. Sean Manaea, getting to him at 76 on FanDuel, against anybody other than the Dodgers, I'd maybe be more intrigued given his strikeout upside. It's just a really tough spot. I can't imagine paying $9,000 for Manaea on DraftKings. And Jordan Montgomery at 92, I just don't think we're getting a lot of innings out of Montgomery. Maybe he goes 5. Maybe 5 and the win is in play. But do you want to pay that for a maybe 92? I don't think so. So it's really just, we're kind of looking at the high-end guys up here. And then, again, maybe you could get away with that. But for as many games as are on the slate, it's not the deepest pitching slate in the world. There are very good pitchers on it, but it's not a long list. So that's an interesting one. Monty threw 68 in the last game. Thanks, Lars. 75, 80. Probably 75. Increments of 10 seems to be about right, but that 68 you could argue 80 easily. So yeah, like 5 could be there. Manaea's career numbers at Dodger Stadium are horrible. At what point does sample size in a specific ballpark matter? I don't have a number for that, Monty, but I would say that it's somewhat, especially in parks that aren't like Coors Field, obviously, but aren't like overly super hitter friendly, that are somewhat neutral parks or even pitchers parks. I would maybe look at it a little bit BVP-ish, where it's just like, yeah, all right, he didn't necessarily succeed there, but you're talking about 2 starts each year in that ballpark. If it's a divisional park where they pitch more often, right, you do gain ground on that. But you're also talking about, over the length of time that a guy like Manaea has been in the league in different roles, both starting and relieving. And with the Dodgers, you do get a high-end lineup like pretty much throughout that history. But with a lot of other teams, you'll get a lot of changes in those lineups throughout that history. You're also dealing with the aging process for a pitcher. Just because he was either good or bad 6 years ago in a start, he's not that same guy anymore, right? So there's a give and take there. If anything, I would try and look at like it would be smaller sample actually, but I would probably look at like most recent years. Consider maybe like the last 3 years and just look at what that track record looks like if you wanted to judge it by that. But I prefer to just go more with the normalized, park factor numbers and normalized numbers for the pitchers. Good question though. I don't know a good number on that, but just considering like how does pitching normalize? Probably I'd want like 100 innings pitched if you wanted to judge it by that. So if you can get like the last 3 years sample that adds up to about 100 innings, then maybe you've got something at least worth considering. I just don't know if you can get to that number, even for a divisional opponent. And that said, you're also still just talking about like, it's just the vacuum of it, right? Do I want to roster Sean Manaea against this Dodgers team? And it's pretty much a no most of the time anyway. So it's sometimes you can drill down too deep and you can find a reason to play a guy that maybe you shouldn't be playing, right? And especially if it was an indicator like that, I'd be even more concerned, right? If you were in there saying like, oh, he's always pitched really well in Dodger Stadium, I'd be like, that's a dicey one to hang on to. Lone Wolf saying Dodgers mini, bats on Hernandez and Smith. Can't argue with that. You're dealing with, I like Sean Manaea. I don't think he's a bad pitcher at all. Decent strikeout pitcher, but all those Dodgers avoid strikeouts pretty well. All right, so let's get into this thing before the slate locks. We probably got all these lineups just now as we were talking. Let's see. Yeah, we do have the Rays. Did the Labs get it yet? No, they got the Royals, though. All right, let me grab that. I'm going to punch in the Rays, and we'll have a couple off the top at least. We got some of these lineups in, but not many. These light blue guys. All right, Rays. Why am I doing this? Nope. Always the most fun part of the show. Terry's updating lineups. All right. Diaz, Rosarena, Palacios, Isaac Paredes, Harold Ramirez, Ahmed Rosario, Curtis Mead, Caballero, and Ben Rortvedt. All right. Revenge game for Ben Rortvedt at the bottom of the Rays lineup. He was on the Yankees for, I think, the last, 2 years? And did not play very much for the Yankees. He was hurt for a while. He was supposed to come in and be the backup catcher for a little bit. And when he was healthy, I guess he did that job. But I don't think he has revenge in his heart against the Yankees. And he's hitting ninth inning as a catcher, and he's not that good. But we've got a really good Yankees lineup to deal with. Going up against Tyler Alexander, who's got a 17.1% strikeout rate, over 15 1/3, one start. Are we getting... Yeah, it's just one start, but he went 5 in one of the bulk relief appearances and 6 in the other one. So I would expect a basically full start here from Tyler Alexander. You're just going up against a ridiculously good lineup with tons of right-handed power from Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, a little bit from Glaber. And then you've got Juan Soto as one of the lefties in there. No worries, lefty, especially not against a lefty like this for a hitter like Soto. No worries about him basically facing anyone in the entire league, and possibly the entire history of the league, to be honest. But Anthony Rizzo at the further down the lineup, still we've been dipping pretty precipitously in terms of the triple slash numbers with Riz. There might still be something going on. I've been, poking around the edges of being worried about that. And now we're down to 243, 13, 307, a .067 ISO, just the one home run, 88 WRC plus. Just really, I don't know, maybe hasn't gotten right yet from that concussion last year, but they are still rolling him out here. He's very, very cheap. So I would consider him in Yankee stacks, but he's kind of deprioritized even though he's cheap for me. It's the salary that's helping him get into some lineups. But I think from here through there, is the pretty exciting group of Yankees hitters. You've got Ozzie Cabrera down the bottom of the lineup, who's still at 309, 350, 545, a 236 ISO. He's got 3 home runs this year, a 158 WRC plus. Hats off to him if he is this guy. I certainly didn't think so. I still don't think so. He never really showed anything that would make me think that he's that guy. But if he can keep that up, then hey, great. That worked out. He's still very cheap at least on DraftKings for having done that. It's just, I don't really want that hitter at third base for 3,200 from the 9th spot in the lineup. It's not ideal. He's 31. He's got outfield eligibility, which is handy on FanDuel, but very low priorities down the bottom of the lineup. I don't love Verdugo. It's a weak lefty, but I don't love Verdugo situationally here. Jose Trevino, more of a defensively oriented catcher. He does have 1 home run on the season, but not a big time hitter as a catcher. So it's like a 6-man group for the Yankees, and I think any combination really of those 6 hitters at the top of the lineup is pretty spectacular looking in this spot against Tyler Alexander. I think you can get to Schmitty. I wouldn't play Alexander here, by the way. I think I said that. 5,500, even at that price on DraftKings. In his first few starts, struck out 4 each. One start. Again, it was 1 start and 2 bulk relief appearances. Struck out 4 in each of those. He gave up 2 runs in the 6-inning appearance against San Francisco. The other one, the middle game, the actual start was at Coors Field, went 4 1/3 in that one, gave up 4 earned on 8 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. And then he had a 5-inning appearance against the Blue Jays to start the season where he gave up 5 earned, gave up 2 home runs in that one, gave up 2 home runs at Coors Field, and gave up a home run against the Giants. So the Yanks also looking pretty good on the home run board. For the season, that amounts to a 7.14% home run rate. That'll probably come down. A lot of barrels, but not a ton of exit velo or hard hits. But there's no good reason that I can see to consider Tyler Alexander here. Clark Schmidt is somewhat effective for the Yankees. 7,900 is a fine price. Like I was saying, he's in that range where I think he is an effective SP2 option for you on DK. I think you can get there on FanDuel if you want to. No reason to believe that he can't get to the quality start bonus. Hasn't gotten there yet this season. Went 5 1/3 in the first outing, 4 1/3 in the second, 5 innings in the third outing, but pitched pretty effectively. He's given up runs, but hasn't gotten dinged by anybody. 3 earned runs in the first start, 2 in the second one, and then 1 earned run on 3 hits in the third start. That was against the Guardians. He did walk 5 in that one. Not very efficient. It's going to hurt your upside. Struck out 7. But had he not walked 5 in that one, he probably would have gotten the 6th inning, and who knows whether he gets through it or whatever. But the depth, I'm saying, is probably there. He's at a 25.4% strikeout rate so far for the season. Stuff Plus is looking pretty solid for him so far this year. Very small sample, of course, for all of this stuff. But 25.4% strikeouts. The walks have been problematic. It was 5 walks in that third game and then 3 walks in the game against Toronto in the middle. Didn't walk anybody, oddly, against Houston. Struck out 5 in the first start of the year. But I think you can get there. It's a Tampa lineup that doesn't strike out a ton, but there's a couple gettable guys, a couple 1 and 4 types in that mix. Randy Arozarena is one of them, obviously a very dangerous hitter overall anyway. He's started out cold, 54 WRC plus. He's hitting behind Yandy Diaz as usual, 76 WRC plus for Yandy. Really slow starts for both those guys, especially Diaz, who was just so good, wire to wire last year. A little bit surprising to see him down low, but he's striking out just 14.9% of the time. Still getting bat on ball. Still like the Yandy Diaz turn to come at some point. Richie Palacios hitting 3rd. You get a lefty in Yankee Stadium out of the deal. But not the highest end lefty, just a 3.04 in the home run model. He's got 1 on the board for the season. He's got a stolen base, a 144 WRC plus, over 47 plate appearances. He's cheap if you're considering stacking Rays, but it's not a killer spot. He's also striking out 25.5% of the time so far this year, 10.8% over last year. Last year it was 102 plate appearances, did hit 6 home runs, stole 2 bases, created runs 20% better than average. Caught up in that mix of everybody on the Rays being better than they are. Isaac Paredes, pretty effectively priced. 5 home runs already this season. He only cost $4,500 on the DraftKings slate. Hitting cleanup in this spot in Yankee Stadium. Pretty easy park to homer in. 242 ISO, 156 WRC plus. Last year he had 31 home runs. Was right around the production that he was, the triple slash that he's got right now, I don't really see why he's just 4,500 on this slate on DK. He should probably be a $5,000 option. 3,300, pretty effectively priced on FanDuel too. Howard Ramirez, good bat on ball hitter, good line drive skills. Could in Yankee Stadium translate into a home run, but more of a doubles hitter, a guy who can drive the ball, a guy who can keep your lineup moving. Ahmed Rosario is off to a very strong start. 339, 349, 532, 159 WRC plus over 63 plate appearances, 2 homers, a stolen base. Pretty sure I've been saying it. Pretty sure I've at least mentioned it a couple times that I love that pickup for the Rays. Just the way they turn these guys who were either supposed to be somebody and didn't get there, the post-hype types, or guys that weren't supposed to be anybody and they just develop him. I loved this spot for Ahmed Rosario. Not to say that it's going to succeed, but nice start to that storyline anyway. Curtis Mead, another guy who was a once upon a time formerly pretty high-end prospect. Right now, 50 plate appearances, 222, 300, 222, just a 65 WRC plus. Caballero down the bottom of the lineup does have speed, 5 stolen bases so far this year, 313 on base percentage, and then Rodvet obviously rounding things out. So you can get some Schmidt if you want it. He's effectively priced for some, again, these two guys that are really the SB2 market right now, unless you want to double spend. I wouldn't play Tyler Alexander. I would definitely consider some Yankees bats off the top. And then on the Rays side, I think you can get there. It's primarily like the 2 struggling guys at the very top of the lineup, Diaz and Arozarena. You take or leave Richie Palacios. I probably would want to get the lefty in there, considering that it's an entirely right-handed lineup otherwise. Paredes I would definitely want, and then one of Ramirez Rosario. I'd probably just look 1 through 6 and go that route. Dennis XX Cubs fan throwing smoke in the chat. Bonus for the Rays is that Rosario doesn't want to date 14-year-olds. Yeah, a little bit problematic when you're paying a guy who's going to be in jail in another country for the next handful of years. Athletics and the Guardians. EMAC wrote a little piece that he clipped and sent to me comparing Joe Boyle to Nuke Lelouch from Bull Durham. Boyle so far this season, 24.6% strikeout rate, 13.1% walk rate. If you're not familiar from Bull Durham, struck out 18, also walked 18. Which, by the way, we figured out the pitch count. And it would have been insane to give somebody as many pitches as Nuke Lelouch would have needed in that game as a developing gem in their minor league system. Edward B. Burgo, North Carolina is in the house. A little late, but what a fucking day it was. Now, what better lose my ass tonight will be the cherry on top. Hopefully things will go better than that, Edward B. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. All those good things. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Let's talk about our pals over at AceMind. You can see it down at the bottom. Just feeding it to you subliminally. It's also in the description for this video down there. AceMind.io. It's our sim partners, our optimizer pals. Those guys have products for MLB, NBA, NFL, MMA, PGA, etc., etc. Constant stuff in development. If you go over to AceMind.io right now, you can try their products for free for 3 days with their free trial. And then once you decide that you like it and you need it and you want to continue using it, plug in promo code rotoscouts, all caps. It'll get you 20% off your first month over there. They're already the most effectively priced in the industry for those kind of tools. I'm talking way, way under the people who are asking for $300, $400, $500 a month for their products, which is completely bonkers. You know who you are. These guys are really fairly priced, and you get a little discount on top. Anyway, let's keep on moving. So Boyle is striking out a lot of hitters, but he's pitching pretty inefficiently. Decent stuff plus number in the small sample. Hasn't given up a home run yet this year. Just 2.7% barrels over his 12 2/3. It is a fly ball launch angle on average. He's going to give up some home runs, but it's been guys who have gotten bat on ball against him when he's not either striking them out or walking them have not really hit him all that hard yet this year. In a small sample last year, just 16 innings. That was also true last year. The hard hit was at 42.5, but the exit velo under 89, just 2.5% barrels, 1.67% home runs in a small sample. So we're not getting the strongest power marks from the Guardians. like I was talking about before. But I just think given this, and given that the Guardians do this with strikeouts, 20% on the average, but that's with Florial and Bo Naylor kind of screwing things up. When you've got a run of hitters from 1 through 5 who are averaging a 13.1% strikeout rate and did the same last year, it's actually literally the same. Look, see? Look. 13.1%. 13.1%. So that's interesting. So with these guys limiting strikeouts so much, it doesn't really matter that these two guys are aggressive. It's just pushing that average up a little bit, and maybe it becomes a little spot that people miss. But all that is to say, I really don't think Joe Boyle has a strong path to success for 6,700. It's just the wrong team for him to be matched up against. If he was looking at the Mariners, a team that's really struggling and has been swinging, wildly, not necessarily the best group for drawing walks, maybe you could argue it. He could certainly succeed here against the Guardians, but matchup-wise, it's just not the right team to roll those dice with. On FanDuel, I don't think you need to consider him at 71. Other than limiting the home runs, everything else has been, not great. 5.68 ERA, a 4.45 xFIP. The WHIP is all the way up at 1.82. Even the swinging strikes, not really considering it's decent stuff. Plus rating, considering that he has been getting guys to strike out. It's not the greatest swinging strike rate. CSW at 26.3. On the other side, Tristan McKenzie, I referred to it before. He's gone. Last start was against the Yanks. 4 innings, gave up 5 earned, a home run, walked 6, struck out just 1. Start before that, 5 2/3 against the lowly White Sox. Faced 23 hitters, give up no earned runs, gave up no runs, period. 3 hits, but he walked 4 and he only struck out 2. Game before that was at Seattle against that, like I just referred to, free swinging bunch. 3 1/3 in that one. It was one of their good early games. They scored 4 earned and 5 total runs against him, hit a home run. He walked 2 in that one, and he only struck out 2 of the Mariners. So we're dealing with a version of Tristan McKenzie over, it's just 13 innings, it's just 3 starts, but he hasn't worked. He worked into the 6th in that game against the White Sox, but again, didn't give up any runs, but was walking people and not striking anybody out. So not a great fantasy performance. Other than that, it was 2 short starts. He's got an 8.1% strikeout rate against a 19.4% walk rate. Obviously, these will normalize a little, but something not quite right about that. Last year, it was an extremely small sample. 2 years ago, 25.6% strikeouts, a 5.9% walk rate. If you could guarantee me I was buying that Tristan McKenzie against this Oakland team, of course I would want to. I think you can roll the dice on him at 87, 86. It's not, across 150 lineups, it's not the worst spot to tackle. We're going to target this Athletics team throughout most of the year. They do have guys who can draw walks, but they've got a lot of strikeout targets. But he just hasn't been sharp to start the season, so it's a little bit concerning to see, especially for, not having pitched much last year. So I don't know that you necessarily want to go there if you're building 20 lineups. If you're building 1, certainly he wouldn't be my choice. Which is weird to say about a pitcher targeting the A's for considering how much we do, or a pitcher going against the A's, considering how much we do target them. I don't know that necessarily leads us to A's stacks, but they are very, very cheap. Nobody over even 2,800 in the confirmed lineup on FanDuel. Nobody over 4,700 in the confirmed lineup on DraftKings. They do create value. They have okay home run marks. McKenzie's given up a couple, is it 1 in each? No, 1 in the first game, 1 in the third game so far. Back in this season, he gave up a pretty decent home run rate over 30 starts. Certainly not impossible to homer against him. Gave up a lot of exit velo, fly ball trajectory, a lot of barrels, reasonable on the hard hits. He was very good that year, but still possible to hit home runs against him. So maybe you could buy into the A's a little, considering how cheap they are. Abraham Toro off the top, got a home run and a stolen base on the season at 1% above average for run creation. Not hitting for a bunch of power yet. Last year, 15.4% barrel rate in just 21 plate appearances. Okay. 2 years ago, 352 plate appearances, hit 10 home runs, but just 185, 239, 324. I like the spot in the lineup. if nothing else, for 2,900, 2,700. I don't know that I want to build Abraham Toro into my third base spot, though. Zach Geloff, kind of interesting for just 2,800 on FanDuel, 47 on DraftKings. Slow start to the season, 2 home runs, 3 steals, though. The counting stats, we'll get there. I think Zach Geloff will be fine over time. He'd probably be my first bat from that ace stack. JJ Bleday for a cheap price. Get a lefty bat in there against the struggling McKenzie. It would be in consideration. Not the highest end player. I still prefer Ryan Noda. I don't really know why Ryan Noda hits down the bottom of the lineup and they put JJ Bleday in the 3 spot. I would reverse those 2 hitters. Seth Brown's interesting, especially at just 2,200 on the FanDuel slate. Highest home run mark on the team, 8.34. Good rates last year before for premium contact. Just 1 home run, a stolen base on the season, 218, 283, 309. Not a great start, but he'd be one of the priority bats in this lineup. Tyler Nevin, no home runs, no steals, but 303, 378, 333, putting bat on ball at least. He's created some runs at a 121 WRC plus in the tiny sample. Lawrence Butler, below the Mendoza line, just a 300 on base, an 88 WRC plus, a homer, a steal. Langoliers, 4 home runs, 3 of them came in 1 game. 3,400, 2,700, does put bat on ball effectively when he makes contact. It's definitely a oddball power hitter as a catcher for very cheap prices and low popularity on any given slate. If you had him on that day, he hit 3 home runs, you probably won because nobody else had him. Noda, like I said, I do like. Not been good so far this year. Last year, good on base, 16 home runs, created runs 23% better than average on an awful team over 495 plate appearances. So I think he's playable from the bottom. Nick Allen is an afterthought. I do think you can take some shares of this Guardians team, just targeting the volatility of Joe Boyle and everything that he's done bad, and relying on them not to strike out and just do their station-to-station thing. The lack of home run upside, it's, again, not an impossibility for them to hit any home runs here, obviously. But we're not projecting for a lot. They're not the best power-hitting group in the world anyway. On the days where the station-to-station thing only yields 4 runs, they don't become a very good stack. I think they could pile them up a little bit more against Joe Boyle here, though. Stephen Kwan, 2 home runs to start the season. I'm much more interested in the solid on base percentage, partly driven by average. Doesn't really strike out at all. Doesn't draw a ton of walks. Did draw a 9.7% rate last year, but his normal approach is just get bat on ball. He's a contact-oriented player. Get yourself to first base, steal a few bags, score a lot of runs. As a correlated scoring play, he's on the board. Since we're not home run hunting anyway with this team, maybe that puts him on the board a little bit more than on the average Guardian slate. Andres Jimenez, second base only on both sides, 48.32. Reasonably priced. No home runs yet this year, but creating runs 23% better than average, a 360 on base, ahead of Jose Ramirez, who at 3,700 is a little cheap. 5,900 on DraftKings is about right. 3 home runs and a stolen base for him so far, but really hasn't rounded into form yet over his 87 plate appearances. Josh Naylor's been terrific so far this season. 175 WRC plus, getting on base at a 403 clip. 4 home runs from the left side. I like him a lot in this spot. Will Brennan, another lefty, 3,300, 2,600. Slow start for him, a homer, 2 steals, 58 WRC plus. Tyler Freeman, also slow starting, 82 WRC plus. Basically everybody down the bottom of the lineup you could say that same thing about. I'm maybe more interested in the lefties if I'm skipping down to the bottom. In Bo Naylor as a reasonably cheap lefty catcher with a little bit of power. He's got 2 home runs, a steal. Also is at 191, 321, 319 with a 92 WRC plus for the season. And Esteban Florial, 3,200, 2,300. Very, very cheap. A moderate skill set. Maybe he is just truly a quad A player. Could never break through with the Yanks. A lot of positional blocking. But just 2 home runs, a stolen base, 167, 265, 433 over 35 plate appearances. A very cheap lefty bat with maybe a little bit of power, but a guy who strikes out at a pretty aggressive clip. Knows how to draw a walk, but strikes out aggressively. And then Brian Rocchio just getting at bats as their shortstop. Pretty low end in terms of DFS. So I don't think I want either of the pitchers. I can't really justify taking somebody as volatile as Joe Boyle against this Guardians team with what they do well. I can't really get all that enthusiastic about Tristan McKenzie even against this bad Athletics team. It wouldn't shock me if McKenzie came out and put up 30 FanDuel points. It would probably, given the current form that we've seen in a very, very, very small sample. It would surprise me if he came out and like broke the Slate style, especially considering that he's not really that discounted. So really, probably neither pitcher. You can get away with very, very cheap A's bats in this spot, probably. And I kind of like the Guardians to do just, Guardians things. Yeah, Astro's been on a roll, Trev. Dare doing a Taylor Swift impression. Shots fired at opposing sim companies. Yes, it's the Tortured Poets Department, right? I think that's what it was. Her new album. I could not identify one Taylor Swift song if I heard it. If you played 100 songs that all sound the same from artists like that, I wouldn't be able to pick out which 20 were Taylor Swift songs and which 80 were not. Has anyone had an easier start to the season than McKenzie? The entire Red Sox pitching staff. But at Seattle and then facing the White Sox, the Yanks in there, kind of a rough one to screw it up for the McKenzie being that. But yeah, two very easy spots where he did not succeed to start the year. But that entire Red Sox pitching staff faced an AL West trip to start the year. That's why I think their staff ERA is still below 2. It's also why ERA is dumb. Yeah, Hoosier, just because it's in the news so much, right? She's just everywhere that you turn, people are talking about Taylor Swift. A little bit less now that football season is over. But yeah, I knew that 2 months ago from just all the buzz about her and Kels. So yeah, are they still together? Travis Kelce? Did he find somebody new? Move on? Break her heart? Give her something else to write about? But yeah, literally could not identify. I'm sure I've heard them. I'm not saying I haven't. I'm not saying they're not good songs. But could not pick one out of a lineup, so to speak. Rangers and the Braves. Probably got some of these lineups in. I definitely think that we can talk about the Braves bats. No big surprise there. We talk about them basically every day. They're always on at least on the board for quality. They're very expensive. You do get a discount at the top. It's not Michael Harris hitting up there. It's Orlando Arcia today. Their shortstop, $4,000 on the DraftKings slate, $3,000 on the FanDuel slate. Player who hit 17 home runs last year. He's got one so far this year, creating runs 62% better than average to start the season, though, getting on at a 412 clip, 377 average. He's got an okay, very, very playable home run mark at 7. We're well over halfway to the magic number there. Surrounded by guys who are over the magic number for home run power. Going up against Andrew Heaney, who is, how many has he given up so far this year? I think it's just 1 on the season. Yeah, he's just given up 1 so far this season. He faced Houston twice, and he pitched at Tampa Bay. But Heaney, historically, has been pretty targetable for home runs. So I think we get that, and if we get the bad Andrew Heaney today, it could be a free-for-all for Braves shares. Getting Matt Olson under 4,000 on FanDuel, getting Austin Riley at just 3,600 is pretty nice. Those guys could easily be $4,000 players themselves. Marcell Ozuna has been just incredible for the last, basically all of last season, the start of this season. 40 homers last year. He's got 8 already this year. 352, 403, 732 triple slash, 380 ISO, 205 WRC plus. Very high-end player. Still just 5,300 on DraftKings. A little bit of a discount baked in there because they're keeping Riley and Olsen above 6,000 or at 6,000. 4,000 for Ozuna on FanDuel. They're about right now. Everybody's realized that he's been pretty terrific, but definitely a player that you're considering in your stacks. Ronald Acuna, I think I skipped off the top, but obviously we're going there. He got his first home run of the season finally. Congrats, Ronnie. He's up to 294, 400, 397, creating runs 28% better than average, 8 stolen bases, leading the team 14.71 in the home run model. You definitely see him going on a little bit of a tear here. So welcome to the season, Ronnie Acuna. It's good to see you. Top 5 is easy to get to. Then you probably get a little bit of a discount on Adam Duvall's ceiling. 3,700, 2,900 is pretty cheap. He's got 1 home run this season, 240, 355, 400. He hit 21 homers in 353 plate appearances last year. He hit just 12 in just 315 the year before that. But a premium right-handed power bat, pretty good contact profile. A lot of barrels in there for Adam Duvall. We know that Adam Duvall can hit home runs against bad lefties, and if we get the bad version of Heaney again, these righties could really pop here. Michael Harris, no real concerns for him. You're buying into a spot that's a little bit down lineup, 4,900, 3,100, 278, 316, 431 to start the season, 2 home runs, a steal. Love the upside for Michael Harris on any given slate. That said, probably prefer Matt Olson and the big runner righties above him. Travis d'Arnaud, backup catcher with some power upside. David Fletcher is apparently on the Braves. Total afterthought at the bottom of the lineup. 97 plate appearances for Fletcher last year. He did hit 2 home runs, 70 WRC plus. Year before that, he also had 2 home runs in 228 plate appearances. Just not a typical Braves hitter. Let's put it that way. Chris Sale, definitely pretty high end today. 9,400, 9,600, not terribly priced. First 3 starts of the season, 5 1/3 at Philadelphia, struck out 7, walked 2 earned runs. Faced Arizona, who, as we've said a number of times, pretty decent against lefties. Struck out 6 in that one, walked 0 against a team that knows how to draw some walks. 2 earned runs on 4 hits. A little messy against Miami at Miami. 7 strikeouts, 3 walks, but gave up 5 earned, gave up a home run, 6 total hits. 2 home runs allowed on the season, but been pretty effective, 28.2%. Strikeout rate is what that totals up to. Limiting hard hits and premium contact outside of those couple of home runs. Stuff Plus likes it. 14% swinging strike rate, a solid CSW at 30.7. The xFIP is looking better than the ERA, so the more honest number for how he's pitching is giving us something. I'm sure Sierra likes him too if you prefer Sierra. So I definitely think he can get there. It's a tough opponent. The Rangers don't strike out a ton, but Chris Sale can certainly find some strikeouts. We'll see what version of the lineup we get. I certainly wouldn't be using the Rangers to target Chris Sale in a big way here. A couple contrarian stacks, sure. A couple, one-offs or mini stacks around guys like Seager and Semien and Adolis Garcia are fine. Even Jonah Heim is on the board for a little bit of power. But it's not a great spot for the Rangers. If this is the lineup, and presumably the top end is at least relatively correct, Semien, star caliber second baseman, 5,100, 3,900. You're pretty discounted on DraftKings for Marcus Semien. That's a low price. 3,900 is more correct on the FanDuel slate. On FanDuel, you get Corey Seager for just 36. Kind of a discount on him. Both those players not underperforming in any notable way. Maybe in counting stats department, a little bit over 78 plate appearances for Seager. 1 home run, no steals, but still creating runs, 20% better than average, 304, 385, 377. Semien has 3 home runs and a stolen base, 286, 355, 464, creating runs 37% better than average. Maybe it's a matchup price. You're getting a little bit of a discount on Marcus Semien for the matchup there. That's weird, though. That's very cheap on DraftKings for him. Wyatt Langford for just 41. You can definitely get these Rangers. If you just wanted the top 5 on the Rangers here, that's a $4,900 average, and it includes Semien, Seager, and Adolis Garcia. That's a little bit more interesting than I was kind of hand-waving it. If that's the version of the lineup that you get up top, that's playable just because it's so cheap for those talented hitters. As good as Sale's been, he's not invulnerable on the mound, certainly. Just know what you're doing. It's still in small shares, small doses kind of a play. But that's a little bit more on the board than I was originally thinking, just for how cheap they are. It's not really the same thing on FanDuel. Adolis Garcia, 4,200 full price. Little discount on Seager, full price basically for Semien. Langford's cheap. Langford, 254, 333, 310. No homers, no steals yet. Just an 87 WRC plus after murdering spring training as one of their top prospects. But still a reasonable play and a lot of expectations for him to turn it around. Heim has 3 home runs as a relatively cheap and typically under-owned catcher. Ezekiel Duran, 2,800 with 2 positions on DraftKings, 2,300 with 4 positions on FanDuel. In a vacuum is interesting, but I don't love the matchup. And then down lineup, Evan Carter is a good hitter, puts bat on ball very well, doesn't strike out a ton, but isn't off to the greatest start this season. 2 home runs, a stolen base is nice, but just 188, 312, 359 for what he's expected to do. It's pretty low end. Davis Wenzel is mid-priced if you need another reason to help average this price down.
If you wanted to go with like an extremely weird wraparound play, if this is the lineup again, and then the 4 top guys, now we're talking about a $4,500 average for a stack that also includes Semien Seager and Adolis Garcia. You're leaving out Heim and taking the min-price guy there. Davis Wenzel over his first 8 plate appearances. Pretty low end. So, Sale is a yes. Andrew Heaney's a no. The Braves bats are a big yes. The Rangers bats, especially for the DraftKings, the odd little DraftKings value that's on the board, not out of consideration. I would definitely leave them in the optimizer pool, let it build out stacks, and I'd kind of be looking for them as just like a really good team with a lot of really good hitters for a fair price that is, I can't imagine, going to be all that popular today. Doesn't look like we have the Orioles lineup yet. We do have the Royals. Just reloading on Twitter. Nope. Alec Marsh, Dean Kramer. I don't think we go to either one of these guys. Just kind of low-end projections. 10, 11s on DraftKings, 22s on FanDuel. Nothing special here. 3 starts, 16 and a third for Kramer. 3 starts, 16 and 2/3 for Alec Marsh. 19.4% strikeouts so far this season for Kramer. 4.96 ERA, a 4.15 xFIP. Not walking anybody. Giving up some power, some premium contact, 14.3% barrels, 5.56% home run rate in the extremely small sample. That amounts to 2 home runs in the first game against this Kansas City team and 2 home runs in his most recent start against Milwaukee. Pretty good start in the middle of those. At Pittsburgh, he went 7 in that one, struck out 6, walked 0, gave up 1 run, unearned run on 5 hits. The other 2 starts were a little bumpier. The first one against Kansas City wasn't terrible. It was just 3 earned on those 2 home runs. Struck out 5, walked 1, 5 and a third. The start against Milwaukee was a mess. 10 hits, 6 earned, 8 runs total, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 home runs. Marsh, decent start against this Baltimore team in his first outing of the year. 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up 1 earned, 7 innings, 2 hitter. Back down to earth a little bit more in the next 2 against lower end teams. Against the White Sox, he went just 4 2/3, gave up 3 earned, struck out 3, walked 1, 8 hits, and then gave up 4 earned to the Mets over 5, struck out just 2, walked 1, gave up a homer, 4 earned on 5 hits. So don't love the upside for either one of these pitchers. They're like low end dice roll SP2s at 7,000 and 6,600. And you're going up against 2 teams that I kind of like. I think these Royals are a growing, decent team. And they've been good at it to start the season this year. They're getting Michael Massey back in the lineup, I'm just noticing. And then the Orioles have just been crushing the world. So I don't really see it for either of these pitchers. I'm much more interested in talking about these hitters. On the Royals side, we'll start with the lineup that we have confirmed. Bobby Witt, 6,400 and 4,000. Not incorrectly priced, just very, very expensive, particularly on DraftKings, but everybody around him is cheap, so it doesn't really matter, with only Michael Garcia, oddly, as the $5,000 player, and then Pasquantino, Sal, Melendez, and Velasquez all under 5,000. I don't really understand how they arrive at that. 5,000 for the guy who's creating runs 50% worse than average versus all these guys. 3 home runs, 3 steals, but 164, getting on base at a 213 clip. They continue to put him in that leadoff role. They like him there for some reason. I do think, as we've discussed, he is talented, but really has not shown very much at all. And I don't know how they're justifying that. And I don't know how they're justifying the spot in the lineup. FanDuel's a little closer to accurate at 2,800. But I really like this group. And I would throw Mike Massey into that pile. I think there's a decent lefty bat there. 15 homers in 461 plate appearances last year, a 152 ISO, just a 229, 274, 381 triple slash. He's got a lot of growing to do. 4 home runs in 194 plate appearances the year before, 243, 307, 376. But made pretty decent contact that year. 13% barrel. The hard hits haven't been there. But 13% barrel had me interested when we were talking about him a little bit last year. And we saw growth for power despite a dip in the barrels. A little bit better in the hard hit department. Very cheap lefty bat at second base, though. I don't mind that option as just another man in that group. Hunter Renfroe, bad to start the season. He's got 2 home runs. We'll see if he can get to 20 this year. Kyle Isbell at the bottom of the lineup, kind of an afterthought. Does have 3 stolen bases, but 55% worse than average creating runs. MJ's got 3 homers. Velasquez has 2. Creating runs 33% better than average and holding up in the triple slash department so far. MJ will be up and down in terms of the triple slash, but he's 19% better than average creating runs. He's got a 241 ISO in the tiny sample. Puts bat on ball very effectively over the last couple of years. Really like these two guys, and especially where they're priced on both sites. Sal has been a star power hitting catcher for a number of years now. 5 home runs already this season, 324, 370, 574. Nice to see him not have to take a trip to the IL. And then Vinny, we've talked about a number of times already. Just for his bat on ball skills, had started out poorly over the first, call it, 40, 50 plate appearances, and is already up to 262, 361, 492, a 142 WRC plus, a 230 ISO, 3 home runs. I like the upside for Vinny Pasquantino going forward. Solid home run marks, nobody over the magic number, but that entire group of guys that I've been looking at there is in range of it. So not a bad spot for Royals hitters. And then on the other side, take a quick look if we got this lineup in the last couple minutes while I was talking. It's an important one. Not yet. So at least the top end guys are almost definitely going to be in the lineup. Gunnar Henderson out of the top spot, 10.95 in the home run model. Anthony Santander in the cleanup spot, 10.47. You also get Mountcastle just under the magic number. O'Hearn just under the magic number, made him the home run pick of the day. And Adley looking pretty sharp for power upside. So the entire top end plus Cedric Mullins is in there. Colton Cowser, the model doesn't know about this ridiculously hot start. It knows, but it's not like a huge factor in there yet. So you could argue that should be a little bit higher for Cowser, given what we've seen so far and the hitter that we think he should be or is. So that could be a little bit higher for power too. So it's really a strong run of power upside for this Orioles squad. A lot of these guys have multiple home runs already on the season. 6 so far for Gunnar. Killer start for him. 71% better than average creating runs. 288, 346, 603, a 315 ISO. Not a bad start to your year. Adley plays everyday catcher, hitting second. You always want to go to those spots when you're looking at catchers. 4,800, 3,000. He's cheap enough to be one-offed on DraftKings for sure. That's a discount on him. Yanks plays Nick Birdie on IL. Recall Cody Morris and activate Taylor Trammell. Yanks picked up Taylor Trammell off of waivers. I like that move for them. Ryan O'Hearn, so very cheap still. 3,600, 2,900. Just doesn't have a lot of believers out there. I think I'm a Ryan O'Hearn convert now. Just given the incredibly successful year last year in terms of premium contact, in terms of 368 plate appearances, 14 home runs, a very solid looking triple slash, got on base at an okay clip, but everything else about it was pretty solid. A 191 ISO, 118 WRC plus. So far this year, 319, 385, 660, a 340 ISO, a 201 WRC plus, 4 home runs. Starting to believe, gang, and for the believers, he's definitely looking pretty cheap. 3,000 for Santander, a player who, the triple slash is never great, but 4 home runs already on the season. We're looking for power upside out of him. 257, 325, 472 triple slash last year, 240, 318, 455 the year before, but 28 home runs, 33 home runs in 600 and change plate appearances. Pretty good switch hitting power hitter. Mountcastle has 2 home runs, a 317, 375, 492 triple slash in his 72 plate appearances. Like the option at first base, I think he's underpriced. Excellent premium contact. The power of the home run upside, the game power comes and goes, but he's always driving the ball effectively. And I think he's pretty cheap for a team that we want to go to here. Mullins, former 30-30 guy, 5 home runs already this year, 3 stolen bases. I wouldn't think it would be totally nuts to, bet on Cedric Mullins getting back to maybe not 30-30, but 25-25 kind of production. Trending toward 30-30. Cowser's been ridiculous to start the year. 3,400 on FanDuel is, I'll call it correct, right? We don't really know It's just a hot start, but over 49 plate appearances, 400, 429, 800, a 400 ISO, 4 home runs, 250 WRC plus, so 150% better than average creating runs in that tiny sample. For just 3,900, this is where I think he's cheap. DraftKings has him really cheap still. Jordan Westberg, another player out to a good start on this team. Basically everybody, except for Jackson Holiday, who will be fine. 317, 379, 600 for Westberg, creating runs 85% better than average. He's got 4 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 283 ISO. Holiday's been rough to get started, but he's still just 2,400 for a kid that is universally expected to succeed. I have no concerns about 26 plate appearances, over which he's at 0.040, 0.077, 0.040 with a 0 ISO and a negative 69 WRC plus. No concerns. He's just cheap. Maybe you don't throw it out there all that often. He's striking out in more than half of his plate appearances so far, but that is, again, just 26 plate appearances for a rookie. You don't necessarily have to go to it. He is effectively cheap to help things out, but you don't really need it to get to the heart of the lineup there on DraftKings. It's not like he's any lower than several of these guys. On FanDuel, he is effectively lower than some of those guys. A lot of multi-position on FanDuel. Wouldn't be a priority. But considering the talent for just 24, even not totally rounded into form yet, not finding his footing yet, he's on the board for value on FanDuel. So neither pitcher enthusiastic about the Orioles stack, and would definitely play some shares of the Royals stack. I think it looks at least decent. This is that very, very cold game. Yeah, Mamba, I haven't seen anything new for the weather at Coors Field, but it was looking pretty ugly. And then this one is just a really low run total because it's like 40 degrees out there. Wind is blowing out, but probably not going to matter. You've also got Joe Ryan on the mound helping reduce the run total, and Jack Flaherty, who is a pretty talented pitcher, off to a pretty okay start. Flaherty in the last game, 3 earned runs, struck out 8, walked 2 against this same Twins team. Joe Ryan, was that the same game? No. Ryan went on the 13th. Flaherty went on the 14th. So they didn't face each other last time. But Ryan against this Detroit team last time he faced them just last week, allowed 1 earned run on a solo homer, 3 total runs, 6 hits, went 6 innings, struck out 12. 12 being a pretty high number for strikeouts. So that really has nothing to do with the idea of liking Joe Ryan here. It's just getting to a very good pitcher, especially where he's priced on DraftKings. But it's always nice to have that justification that he just did that to this team. But Flaherty on the other side, going up against a pretty free-swinging Twins team, also kind of interesting. Found 8 strikeouts against them last week, went 6 1/3 in that game, walked 2, gave up the 3 earned runs, 6 hits. His one rough spot was oddly against Oakland. That was one of those spots where Oakland played spoiler this year. 6 earned runs in that game, struck out 5, gave up a homer, walked 1, 9 hits in 6 innings, 28 hitters. Good game against the White Sox to start the season, but that's true for basically everybody who faced the White Sox so far. So Flaherty, for me, pretty on the board, especially on DraftKings, 7,700. He was the other of those two guys that I was saying right here. That's where I'm looking for value pitching, I think, on the DraftKings slate. This Twins team, not all that fearsome. You've got lurking Byron Buxton, who at some point will probably do something good this season, but so far just a 51 WRC plus over 61 plate appearances, no homers, no steals, 193, 230, 298. Pretty rough for Byron Buxton to start the year. He's still the most high-priced Twins player on the DraftKings slate. It's just 2,500 on the FanDuel slate. The Twins are really, really cheap. The Tigers on the other side aren't that much more expensive than them, actually. It's just a low-end spot for baseball with the cold being where it is and with two good pitchers on the mound. So probably don't get to either one of these teams all that much, but they are very cheap. I'll give them that. Edward Lillian off the top, 3,800, 2,800 for the Twins. He's got 4 home runs and a stolen base, 246 ISO. Jeffers has a 255 ISO. Kirilloff at 250 over 57 and 58 plate appearances, respectively. Both of those guys creating runs more than 50% above average in a small sample. So not a bad run right there, plus Buxton if you want him. Trevor Larnock's just 6 plate appearances so far this year. Nothing really to talk about there. 8 home runs in 212 last year. 5 home runs in 180 plate appearances the year before. Also very cheap. Lefty hitter. A little bit of premium contact. A little bit of power. Bottom of the lineup, Kyle Farmer is sneaky for 23. Willie Castro at 3,000. They're just 23 and 21 with triple position eligibility for both of them on the FanDuel slate. I prefer those 2 hitters to Christian Vasquez or Carlos Santana. Santana, long track record of success, but we're kind of toward the back end of it, and nothing so far this season. 2,200 at first base. I'm just looking elsewhere at first base, I think. So give me the multi-position guys if I've got to go to the bottom of the Twins lineup in a bad spot, but I'm probably not going to do that. The Tigers, Riley Green I like. Kerry Carpenter I like for a little bit of lefty power. Spencer Torkelson still over the magic number for home run upside. Still looking for his first of the year after a good year last year. 216, 318, 311 over his first 86 plate appearances. Hasn't been pretty, but he's cheap for a kid who hit 31 home runs last year. So I like Torkelson. Colt Keith, premium rookie, off to a really slow start. Disappointing me so far on the Dynasty team. 200, 268, 215, just a 41 WRC plus, a .015 ISO, no homers so far this year for Colt Keith. But if he's hitting here in the lineup and you're going to this team against Joe Ryan for just contrarian for the sake of being contrarian reasons, I guess, Keith would be in consideration. It's really the top 5. Kana's a good veteran bat that you can always build into your Tiger stacks. Gio Urshela, not all that much of a hitter. He is at 304, 316, 339, but 9% worse than average. No power, no speed. Parker Meadows, a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, but .077, 234, 205, 37 WRC plus so far this year. Javi Baez died 5 years ago. Carson Kelly, 2,800, 2,300, a cheap catcher bat at the bottom of the lineup. Really about the top end for the Tigers. But again, you're just facing a really good pitcher who just completely smoked them. Really, really bad conditions for hitting in this game on both sides. So Joe Ryan, big yes. Jack Flaherty, medium-sized yes, with more enthusiasm for that medium-sized yes as a good value option on the DraftKings slate. Would play Flaherty, though, on FanDuel, 8,800. It's a good price for him. Good strikeout rate, not walking that many so far this year. And good pitcher over time. So both pitchers, neither stack. Across 150 lineups, of course, you can throw in a couple shares of each stack if you want to. Focus on the guys that I talked about, but very, very low priorities for those 2 teams. Freddie Peralta, I feel like with that pitcher change the other day, and I think he was on the list early, I feel like Freddie Peralta has pitched like every day this week. But we're actually getting him today, I think. Make sure that hasn't changed. Yeah, that hasn't changed. FanDuel, of course, has had, at least earlier in the day, had DL Hall making this start for the Brewers. So it was still different. But as near as I can tell, it's Freddie Peralta. He's terrific. 9,500 is too cheap for him on DraftKings. Again, you're going up against the Cardinals team that basically everybody's scuffling along. They have not been good. Only Wilson Contreras has been particularly good. Everybody else, like, they're creating runs at okay clips for some of these guys, but we're really not seeing all that much power out of them. They've been, again, quality start. They've yielded the most quality starts to opposing pitchers. I think it was 10. So, not a great start for the Cards. Very, very gettable for Freddie, and he's been pitching out of his mind to start the season. Peralta, 11 strikeouts against the Orioles, the very good Orioles at Baltimore in his last start. Gave up 5 hits, just 1 earned run on a solo homer. Against Seattle in the middle start, 5 2/3. Gave up 3 earned runs to Seattle, 4 hits. Struck out 7, walked 1. That's his rough start for the year, and that one was pretty decent. Didn't get the quality start, and I think I had him that day, and out short of the quality start, pretty sure. And then the Mets faced the Mets in his first start of the year, struck out 8, walked 1, gave up a solo homer and nothing else, faced 19 hitters over 6 innings. So Freddie, perfectly on form. He's a really high price 11-2 on the FanDuel slate when we've got a lot of guys that are competitively projected. Like you've got Joe Ryan higher for less, and then these guys above him, these guys right around it. So I don't really love Freddie on FanDuel. I definitely think he could succeed. I definitely think he could put up the highest score of the day. But you need him to blow these guys away for that price differential. I don't know if we're talking about that tonight. 95, he's just, kind of fairly in the mix with those guys on DraftKings. So just more fairly priced over there. If you were betting on the change of venue request in a very famous trial that's going on, it was denied. CNN is on over there. I had to turn on the news when that guy set himself on fire today. But we're not talking politics. We're not giving opinions. I think everybody knows where I stand anyway. Anywho, Kyle Gibson is effectively priced, but he hasn't really been good this year, and he's only okay over time. Last year, Gibby, 4.73 ERA, a 4.13 xFIP is better, just 19.5% strikeout rate. Gave up some hard hits, but not too many home runs, but definitely gettable. Year before, 5.05 ERA, a better xFIP. This is why people always say, like, one of these years, he'll be better. He'll be good. Because the xFIP is typically better than the actual ERA numbers, but that matters, but only, it only takes us so far. And he doesn't really rack up the strikeouts, like never made any growth in strikeouts. This year it's down so far, just an 8.5% swinging strike rate, a 24.5% CSW. Yeah, the 4.52 xFIP is below the 6.16 ERA, but like Stuff Plus doesn't like what he's done so far this year. He's given up a ton of premium contact so far. Very small sample again. 2 home runs in each of the first 2 games, 1 home run in the third game. So that's 5 on the season so far, and a homer in each game. Struck out 4 in the first one against the Padres at San Diego, 5 in the second game against Miami, and just 2 against the Diamondbacks. Walked 3 in that one. 4 earned runs to the Diamondbacks in the most recent start, 7 in that bad Miami game, and just 2 earned runs over 7 innings to the Padres. Did pitch deep into each game, completed the 6th inning in the 2 most recent starts, went 7 against the Pods. Just doesn't look great here. It wouldn't totally stun me if he succeeded, especially at the $7,300 price, with like went out there, worked 6 innings, gave up 2-3 earned runs, struck out 4 or 5, walked 3 or 4, and some hits. Just an average kind of a start. So if that intrigues you for 73 on DraftKings, it wouldn't stun me if he was okay, but I don't think we're getting any real kind of ceiling out of him. I don't think we need him on the FanDuel slate, and this Brewers team could probably pretty easily get to him. Do we have this lineup? Doesn't look like. On the Brewers side, you can definitely grab some Brewers bats against Gibson. I think there's enough reason to consider them. William Contreras on that side, 5,000, 3,700. Another catcher, plays every day, hits second, and is a terrific hitter. 358, 443, 597 to start the season. 239 ISO, 185 WRC plus. His brother on the other side, like I said, one of the few Cardinals out of the gate strong this year. 240 ISO for him, creating runs 61% better than average. 300, 397, 540. Pretty solid performances from both of the catching Contrerases. Sal Frelick, a light hitting leadoff hitter, but is in the right spot for correlated scoring. Getting on base at a 375 clip, creating runs 6% better than average. 3 stolen bases. As long as he keeps getting on base, we're perfectly fine. Kind of in that Steven Kwan kind of a vein. Not a ton of power from him, but if he's doing his job and correlating with the other guys, you can build him into stacks. Jake Bauers is very cheap for a little bit of lefty pop. 2,900, 2,800 cross sights, 6.26 in the home run model against the pitcher who's, again, been giving them up so far this year. Willy Adames, off to a strong start. 308, 400, 508, 200 ISO, 153 WRC plus, 3 homers. 18.7% strikeouts is the most impressive thing. If he keeps this up, somehow, it would be an outlier for him. But if he keeps that up, it could be a good Willy Adames season. It would be a surprise. I think I said the other day that it's not going to happen. I'm going to give it some time before I unwind the not, but maybe we'll move that to unlikely. I think it's unlikely that he's actually made that adjustment, but we'll see. Oliver Dunn, 33-26, not at third base on DraftKings. If you can get him at 26 at second base on FanDuel, if you're going to this team, I probably still prefer Bryce Turang for a little bit more, but that's where he would be in play. 244, 295, 390 to start the season, 91 WRC plus. Hoskins is interesting, 3 home runs, always good for power upside, 7.65 to lead this team in the home run model. Turang's got 9 stolen bases already this year, getting on at a 367 clip. Could certainly be a candidate for that spot in the lineup. Definitely interesting down toward the bottom. Churio, 3 home runs, 3 steals. 83 WRC plus, too many strikeouts so far, 30.3% strikeout rate, but premium talent, and he's still pretty cheap, 3,800, 3,200. It's just he's been a lot of hit and miss so far this season. So, take the good with the bad if you're playing him every day. Hopefully you got ahead on one of the 3 really successful days. It's been 3 really good days, and then the rest of the days have been to bad. But tons and tons of talent for a cheap price in Jackson Chourio. Blake Perkins, mix and match player, off to a good start. 2 homers, 2 steals, 146 WRC plus over 41. Not completely uninteresting at the bottom of the lineup. Former, decently high regarded prospect. If you go to the Cards, you're doing it really just to be contrarian for contrarian's sake. I don't love the spot for them. It's a team that we go to. They end up showing out for quality on a lot of slates. Everybody's under 5,000 on DraftKings and pretty well under for most of them. Everybody below 3,200 or below on FanDuel. They're very cheap, but it's a very bad matchup against Freddie. In addition, just being very good, elite for strikeouts, Freddie doesn't get tattooed for hard hits. Last year he gave up a few home runs, but the hard hits were managed. 37.3%, 87.6 miles an hour of exit velo. Year before that was terrific, just 1.89% home run rate in the 17 starts. No barrels, no hard hits. So Freddie's difficult to get to. Just doesn't look like a good spot to stack cards. If you're going there, Brendan Donovan, much more interesting on FanDuel for 32, quad position eligibility. Just an outfielder, just kind of an also-ran outfielder on DraftKings. A little bit of power, good on base skills, good correlated scoring play. Goldschmidt off to a really bad start, 1 home run below the Mendoza line. I still believe he'll be fine as things come around, but we're trending toward lower output from Paul Goldschmidt over time. Lars Nootbaar, cheap for a little bit of lefty power, a little bit of speed. 25 plate appearances, a home run, a stolen base so far this season since he returned to the lineup. Arenado hasn't been bad, 299, 321, 403, but just a 104 WRC plus, just 1 home run at Nolan Arenado. That's not what we're looking for. Only striking out 14.8% of the time. He's putting bat on ball a lot because he's only walked at a 2.5% clip. But there's no pop so far. I believe it'll arrive, but what was it, 25 home runs last year? 26 home runs last year. Goldie had 25. Wilson definitely in play, but I think I prefer his brother for the matchup. Nolan Gorman from the left side, definitely a believer, especially for the power upside. 3 home runs already this year, but everything else has been pretty weak. 35.1% strikeout rate. Could certainly be one of the guys that Freddie gets a few times. Mason Wynn, good start to his season this year. Jordan Walker, bad start to his season this year. Both pretty reasonable options if you're stacking this team. Michael Ciani, an afterthought at the bottom of the lineup. Freddie, big yes. Cardinals, bats, pretty much a no. Kyle Gibson, pretty much a no, but if you want to roll a few cheapo dice at 7,300, he's probably, I don't know if he's the next man into that club, but he's cheap. It's not completely out of the question that he could succeed against a middle-of-the-road Brewers team. And then the Brewers bats, there's enough interesting guys that I think they're upper mid kind of an appeal stack-wise. But Freddie's the real target here. He's the guy you want. This is a tough price. He's going to really have to blow this team away at that price. That's a good price. I didn't skip a game, did I? Talked about that one. Yeah. Thought we were higher up that list. This one, all right. So Coors Field, we don't need to talk about pitching, but the weather's a big concern here. Let me reload Mr. Roth, see if we've gotten any updates. Doesn't look like. Anybody get anything since? Oh, thanks, FT Witchell, Fort Witchell. Cards lineup is out too, actually. Official Brewers is Frelick, Contreras, Adames, Dunn, Hoskins. Turang moves up. Sanchez, Gary Sanchez, DH. Kind of interesting there. I still love me some Gary Sanchez, as you guys know. Just another one of those guys who I don't care I care how frequently he makes contact. But as long as he's doing it every now and again, when he does make contact, Gary Sanchez has historically crushed pitches. I'm just going to grab that one for now and put Gary on the board, and then I'm going to go back and delete it. So this is what I'm talking about. Last year, 15.4% barrels, 44.6% hard hits, and we picked off some of those home runs along the way. 267 plate appearances. Dude hit 19 home runs, had a 275 ISO. Gary Sanchez has never been bad. 13.5% barrels, 49.3% hard hits the year before in 2022. 16 home runs in 471 plate appearances. 172 ISO, 89 WRC plus. All right, maybe he wasn't great that year. But when I say Gary Sanchez has never been bad, I mean in what we're looking for from Gary Sanchez, which is just elite premium contact numbers. And when he's in the lineup, hit me a home run, 1 out of every 20-ish times that you come up to the plate. That's who Gary Sanchez is. I have no issues going there. He is actually kind of intriguing at 28-23. This isn't the full confirmed lineup, though. I just wanted to put Gary on the board there to talk about him real quick because I wasn't expecting him. So the rest of that lineup was Blake Perkins and then Chourio hitting 9th, which actually makes Chourio a little bit more interesting as a wraparound guy. What I wouldn't do is go Chourio Frelick. I'd probably go just Chourio right into Contreras, Adames, Hoskins, Turang. So Dunn is hitting 4th. Was that where he was in the? So it's just weird. So it's Frelick, Contreras, Adames, Dunn. So no Jake Bauers in that lineup today. Sanchez basically replaces Jake Bauers in that spot. But Dunn hitting cleanup is a weird option. Unless, am I missing something about this guy? Let me just pull him up real quick. He was on my radar the first couple days he played because he was dead mid priced. 21 homers in 505 plate appearances as a 25-year-old at AA last year. 27.5% strikeout rate. Did walk a ton. 271, 396, 506, a 148 WRC plus, 235 ISO. But again, that's in AA as a 25-year-old. Oh, he's a Yankees prospect? I didn't even know that. I guess with those minor league numbers, if you want to put any faith in that, then, maybe there's a little justification for hitting him 4th today, but weird spot. Anyway. So we got any of these? If you're playing that Houston game, Justin Verlander probably on track for 80 to 85 pitches per reporting. Oh, Larry C. ahead of the curve. Good job, buddy. Hoosier, I don't know what he's priced at, but that's probably 5 innings, and I wouldn't expect a 6th inning out of Verlander. So if you're on DraftKings, it matters less. All right, so the weather is its own thing here. Which Crawford, TGHH? JP Crawford? Sorry. Thank you. We're back to that game right now. And yeah, obviously I should have realized who we were talking about. Yeah, he does. He got on base at a 380 clip last year, stole just 2 bases. So maybe not 3 stolen bases year before. I actually thought those were higher than that. He gets on base easily enough to support better stolen base totals than these. But yeah, even going back in time, we're talking about low to mid single digits. So I guess not. In my head, he was a better stolen base option. I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah, woof. 27th percentile sprint speed. I'm going to say he's a bad stolen base option. When you asked that question, I had it in my head that he stole like 12 bases last year. It was just 2. So yeah, I'm going to say no. Good on base option. Not so far this year, but last year. The Mariners do rank out really well because it's Coors Field. That said, not a ton of power showing going up against Dakota Hudson, who is not a good pitcher, but over time has been effective at limiting the long ball. Not gigantic samples, 81 1/3 last year, 12 starts, just a 2.54% home run rate. Keeps the ball down fairly effectively. He's just going to get destroyed on balls through the infield, line drives, etc. It's not that targetable for home runs. 1.51% home run rate in his largest sample, 139 and 2/3, 26 starts that year, 4.45 ERA, a 4.82 xFIP. That was okay. This is as good as it's probably ever going to be. Just 13.1% strikeouts, though. Way too many walks, a 1.45 whip. Highly gettable that year, and basically worse ever since. 12.7% strikeouts last year, 15.1% so far this year, 4.15 ERA with a 4.56 xFIP. The point is just maybe we don't expect a ton of home runs from Seattle. And then we do kind of have to talk about the concern that if we're not looking for home runs from this team, well, they're not the best station-to-station team in the world. Average on base, 314. Average, 226. Creating runs on the average, 1% worse than average. That's including a couple short sample options down there. Everybody short sample, excuse me. But a couple shorter samples. Both good and bad, though. So just, not any reason in the world to use that to go roster Dakota Hudson. You can see where he's projected. And again, I just left it because, I could have put my thumb on it with change the weight of the opposing team to give them a couple additional points. But it didn't matter because nobody's playing Dakota Hudson here, and you shouldn't. Emerson Hancock on the other side, it's the same story. It's Coors Field. You just don't go to pitchers here. Also, especially with weather threatening this game. Lineups-wise, as I was saying, my concern about the Mariners is just if we're talking about a game that becomes more station-to-station oriented, we're relying on the Coors Field of it to help that double get a little farther, become a double than, caught fly ball. We got to get them to not strike out. Fortunately, we've got a great pitcher on the mound to not strike out against. So they rank out great. If the game plays, I think you got to go there. I don't love that it's the Mariners, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But Crawford off the top, 4,400, 3,200. He's very cheap in the Coors Field game because he's been awful to start the season. 2 home runs, a 63 WRC plus. Julio is fortunately at 5,900. If they had decided to make him really cheap, it would have been a mess. 3,500 is effectively pretty cheap for Julio at Coors Field on FanDuel. He's also been pretty bumpy to start the season. 219, 269, 260, creating runs at a 61 clip so far. 4 stolen bases, no homers. 5,000 for Jorge Polanco, 3,300 cheap for Coors Field pricing. Ty France, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Garver, Mitch Hanger, everybody's cheap. For this being Coors Field, they are very, very cheap. 2,900 still for Jonathan Clase at the bottom of the lineup. I feel like they're going to get popular because it's Coors, because they're going up against a bad pitcher. I just don't love the Mariners here. For me, I'm on record with you guys already, I think, as not the biggest player of Coors Field. Oh, it's postponed? Well, there you go. Moving on. When did that break? Oh, 1 minute ago. All right, cool. So I wasn't rambling for too long with the game already postponed. All right, excellent. So let's move on from this one. Don't have to worry about Coors Field. What I was going to say is I don't really love going to Coors Field anyway, especially not when everybody is. Matt Waldron, knuckleballer, bringing back the knuckleball. 3.14 ERA so far, a 4.14 xFIP, 24.2% strikeout rate, 9.1% walk rate, just a 7.4% swinging strike rate, just a 28.4% CSW. Giving up some barrels, but not many home runs. It's kind of difficult to hit a home run off of a knuckleballer because the ball's coming in at 75 miles an hour. So, week in sometimes yields week out. Now, where does the chalk go? Yeah, it's a bit more interesting. I think some of it will look there probably. I think we'll definitely get the Braves loaded up now. The Yankees will probably get more popular. I don't know about the Guardians getting all that much more popular. That one's still kind of interesting to me. The Orioles will almost definitely get more popular now, which sucks because I like that spot a lot. But this Blue Jays team that we're about to talk about might not get all that much popular, and I think it's kind of an interesting spot. As I was just saying, facing a knuckleballer does play all sorts of tricks with power and everything, but his secondary stuff isn't anything overly impressive. None of his numbers overall on StatCast are all that impressive. So I think he's a gettable knuckleballer. 77 mile an hour knuckler. 36% usage for that. His fastball has been decent, but not great. Expected ERA of 4.39. Expected batting average against 262. Just a 90 mile an hour fastball to go with the 77 mile an hour knuckler. So when he's going to those other pitches, and we're talking about 21% for the four-seamer, 17% for the sinker. This is so far this year. 16% with his sweeper and 10% with his cutter. So he's not one of these guys who's coming out and throwing 80% knuckleballs and just total mess to face. It's kind of a more diverse arsenal than that. So I think that's where we're getting some quality for the Blue Jays side of things. Top three guys here, all rate out over the magic number for home run upside. This is a pitcher without a ton of sample on him. Last year in 41 1/3, 6 starts, he gave up a 5.20 home run rate, 10.8% barrels at a 4.35 ERA, a 4.79 xFIP, only struck out 17.9%. So far this year, again, the barrels are there, but the hard hits and the exit velo and the home runs haven't been. But there's no way, about to say, there's no way that Stuff Plus likes a knuckleball for what Stuff Plus is looking for. So this you kind of take with a grain of salt. But I think he's really gettable here, and I don't know how much people go to the Blue Jays. So that top end of the Blue Jays, especially with how cheap they are, everybody well under $5,000 on the DraftKings slate, everybody $3,200 or less on FanDuel. As much as I've not liked this Blue Jays team early this year, and I think with good cause, I think they're a very short lineup. Getting those players this cheap when they look okay has its appeal here. And I don't know how popular they are. I literally don't know. I haven't checked. But especially if they're unpopular at these cheap prices, George Springer off the top, 12.29 in the home run model. He's got 2 this season, also stolen 3 bases. He's creating runs above average, just not really crushing the ball yet. 219, 337, 329, just a 110 ISO. Slow to come around, but he also isn't striking out. He is walking. Same for Vladdy. Vladdy's got 3 homers on the board, 155 ISO, 118 WRC+. I came that close to making Vladdy the home run pick of the day, and then I decided I wanted to go with Ryan O'Hearn just because I like that Blue Jays spot a little bit better, or that Orioles spot rather a little bit better. But I like Vladdy a lot here. I think at 3,200, 4,800, even if he's not the elite super duper star that we thought maybe he was, he's still a very good player, and those are cheap prices. So happy to get on board with Vladdy. Bo Bichette, 10.37 in the home run model. He's just got 1 this year, 2 stolen bases, a 121 ISO. Also a player not really showing us all that much yet this year. Another player very difficult to strike out at 14.9%. Just with the patience from these 4 hitters, I think can frustrate a knuckleballer too. Waldron not guaranteed to not go out there, use that knuckler ineffectively against these hitters, walk 3 guys, give up a grand slam to Justin Turner to start the game. Not out of the question. Kevin Biggio, kind of interesting in the 5 spot, 3,100, 2,600 across sites, multi-position eligible on the FanDuel slate. 1 home run, 1 stolen base, so just a 125 ISO, but he's been getting on, 370 on base from Kevin Biggio, 136 WRC+, 292, 370, 417 overall triple slash. Striking out too much at 31.5%, doesn't really have that patience attribute that I was just talking about. But not a bad option for a cheap price with a little bit of pop in his bat behind that group of hitters. I skipped over Turner on DraftKings. It sucks because you're still positionally blocked with him and Vladdy. 4,100 is a very good price for Justin Turner. He's got a home run on the season, 185 ISO, 174 WRC+. He's been the most effective hitter for driving the ball from among the top of the lineup. Then you get down to Davis Schneider and Dalton Varsho. Again, if this is the lineup, 216, 255 ISOs from those guys. Varsho up to 4 home runs, hitting for a little bit of power. 122 WRC+ in the small sample. Schneider typically better against lefties, but in the lineup playing a lot. 2,800, 3,900 across sites, second and outfield eligible. Not completely uninteresting for some good bat on ball skills and some barrels that we might be looking for here. Kiermaier, a little bit more defensively oriented. Danny Jansen, a decent hitting catcher though. Jansen had 17 homers in 301 last year and 15 homers in 248 the year before. So if we get Jansen, not Alejandro Kirk, I don't mind the catcher spot from the Blue Jays. So they're on the board, and then their pitcher I talked about Yadiel at the top of the show. This is just his second start in his major league career. The Cuban-born player, part of the Cuban national team, pitched for them in the WBC. He's also pitched in Japan in his career. I think he's 27, 28, I want to say. So not like one of these like 35-year-old guys who finally gets to the show. Still some time for him. But just at 5,000, he's not totally uninteresting. It's just that I don't expect a ton of innings. He went 3 2/3. I think 4 maybe pitch into the 5th, but don't necessarily bank on the win bonus kind of a spot here for Rodriguez. But in that game, it was against the Rockies, so you also take that with a grain of salt. Not at Coors Field. Struck out 6 in 3 2/3. 6 of 16 hitters. He also walked 2, gave up a home run, 4 hits total, but that was the only earned run. And he looks like a pretty interesting pitcher. He's got fairly nasty stuff. He also messes with timing, kind of like a Nestor Cortez type. So, not uninteresting. It's just I wish I had any kind of security of getting to the 5 innings, getting me a win bonus or a shot at the win bonus. I don't know that we've got that yet. But 5,000, if I'm going to the absolute bargain bin, I think he's your man. I prefer going to these two. I think there's much more security in just paying a little bit more and going to those guys. But if you need the deep discount, know that you're probably only buying 4 innings and change. He's also going up against the Padres team that is difficult to strike out. It's a pitcher-friendly park, but not a ton of strikeouts here. So it's kind of an interesting test for him, too. There'll be a lot more to talk about with him after this start. I do think you could probably grab some pods, especially considering that you're going to be getting into the bullpen not too late into the game. Bogart's not uninteresting off the top. He's down at 200, 273, 263. I'll keep buying. As long as the prices keep going down, I'll keep buying. 4,600, 2,900, I think he's in play if you're going to Padres. Not a guy that you want to grab as a one-off necessarily, considering the rough start to the season. But player with a ton of track record for quality and no real reason to think that he's totally diminished all of a sudden. 5,700, 3,800. Fernando Tatis continues to roll out here a little bit cheaper than some of the other super-duper stars on the slate. He's got 5 home runs, 3 steals, a 148 WRC plus, a 213 ISO, 288, 374, 500 to start his year. No reason to think that he shouldn't be 4,000, 6,000 across sites. Cronenworth, 4,000 on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel, 254, 333, 465. Career runs 25% better than average. 3 home runs. Making me look silly, holding down that 3 spot pretty well. Can't really, gotta say, I can't really argue with having him there, especially as one of the few lefties and the few reliable lefties in this lineup. At this point, I know I was questioning it big time early, but considering that he's done well and he's better than Jurickson Profar, we'll see if he's better than Jackson Merrill, but he's been making it work. Manny Machado, I love for power, 9.12 in the home run model. 3,200 is a cheap price for Manny on FanDuel. 51 on DraftKings, especially with retained shortstop eligibility. Kind of interesting. He's up to 4 home runs. Just a 179 ISO in the small sample, 119 WRC plus. Basically, everybody in this lineup outside of Bogey has been pretty good for run creation from the guys that we care about anyway. Profar, another guy I got to kind of give it to. Over 80 plate appearances anyway, and he does this a lot. 299, 405, 478, 153 WRC plus, 2 homers. We'll see what the next 80 plate appearances look like. Kim, over 90 plate appearances, 213 ISO, 3 home runs, 4 steals. Has been hitting the ball very hard. Some bad luck early. Has started to turn it on, it looks like. 227, 337, 440, up to 113 WRC plus. Still just 4,100 shortstop only on DraftKings, 3,100 triple position eligibility through the infield on FanDuel. Like him better as a second baseman, then shortstop, then third baseman. But I wouldn't really have an issue playing Ha-Seong Kim given his talent at any one of those 3 positions. Merrill, you get shortstop eligibility on FanDuel, not on DraftKings. Very cheap. He's not off to a bad start either. 333, 405, 439. Career runs 41% better than average, 4 stolen bases. Like that spot. Campusano, cheap. 273, 284, 364. No real power to speak of so far. He was early, the first few games of the year early, was putting bat on ball pretty well. Right now, scuffling along a little bit. I wouldn't leave him out if I'm building a bunch of Padres stacks, but he's not really a top priority bat, not really a guy that I would consider for one-off purposes here. but he's in play in stacks. And then Tyler Wade at the bottom of the lineup, very cheap with continued 4-position eligibility on FanDuel. Just it keeps him alive for shares if he's in the lineup. 2,300 as a third baseman on DraftKings. No, thank you. So this is a pretty firm no to Matt Waldron. Like he's okay priced. You're not necessarily making some gigantic mistake that I'd be like, oh, what were you doing? I'd really never lecture somebody like that. Not to your face anyway. I might make fun of you on another show when I know you're not here. But I wouldn't really consider it a big mistake to take a stab at Waldron here. I just don't think he's a priority pitcher in any way, shape, or form on this slate. And then Jadiel on the other side, again, on DraftKings at 5,000. If you're looking for the bargain bin, he's the guy I would come up with, digging my hand down into the bargain bin. And both stacks. I like the Blue Jays. I like at the top end at least. Top 5 hitters. And then you could throw in some Schneider, maybe a surging Varsho, little Danny Jansen if that's the lineup. And then Padres on the other side of that, especially getting into this bullpen early, I think is in play. So yes to both bats. And only the most tepid like DraftKings interest in the pitching. Missed. Sean Manaea at 9,000 just seems mispriced on the DraftKings slate going up against the Dodgers here. Check chat, see what you guys are talking about. Yep, TGH, you probably heard it over the last couple of minutes for Jadiel. If you need me to go back and resume and restate that, let me know. I will. Stolen base percentage against Waldron, I don't have handy, but that's actually pretty sharp call, Monty. Certainly easy to steal against a knuckleballer, and you just see a lot of knuckleballs in the dirt, and it's just a really difficult pitch to handle as a catcher. So there's additional upside for running, and maybe even if it's not direct stolen base upside, you maybe just move a guy into scoring position, and then he's got a better crack scoring runs and stuff. So yeah, that's a good call with base running against the knuckler. I like that. So Manaea is just too expensive for my tastes on the DraftKings slate. If you want to take the shot at it, it's not a bad pitcher to do it with. 6 innings in his first start, struck out 8 of the Tigers. At the Reds in his second start was very good over 5 innings. Just gave up 1 earned run, struck out 6, walked 2, 3 hits. Rough game against the Royals. Gave up 6 earned, 8 runs total on 9 hits. Only lasted 3 2/3. Faced 24 hitters. Struck out 4, walked 3, and gave up a home run. But typically you get decent starts out of Manaea. It's just a brutal opponent. They don't strike out much at all. They're very, very, very good against lefties. So their key lefty bats are good against lefties. I just really don't like the spot from Manaea. At 76 on FanDuel, you're probably not getting the quality start. It's a stretch to see Manaea going 6. If he's through 5 clean in the top of the lineups coming back around with Mookie and Shohei and everybody, I feel like Manaea is probably not getting that 6th inning. Not known for his depth of starts. Also has pitched a lot of years in just as a bulk reliever. So yeah, it seems dicey to me at either price. On the Dodgers side, I definitely want to get involved in some shares of Yamamoto. Making his 5th start of the year. The hope is that he pitches into the 6th inning this time. Disaster in the Korea series. I think we can scratch that one off the board a little bit. Just went 1 inning, gave up 5 earned, walked 1, struck out 2 in that one against the Pods. Then came back St. Louis in his first start on American soil. Faced 17 Cardinals hitters, struck out 5, walked 0, gave up no earned runs, only 2 hits. Second start at the Cubbies, faced 21 Cubs in 5 innings, struck out 8, walked 2, again no runs, just 3 hits. 6 strikeouts in the most recent start against the Pods, another 5-inning start. Faced 19 hitters, gave up 3 earned, 2 home runs, walked 1, but 6 strikeouts. 6 strikeouts against that lineup isn't bad. So I really like the upside for Yamamoto. I think among the high-end pitchers, particularly on FanDuel, originally I just grabbed Joe Ryan in the placeholder that I built, and then I was like, I don't love the one-off option that I'm going to get at third base at that price, But if I dip down to Yamamoto, I can get whatever third baseman I want. Literally, gave me exactly enough money for Jose Ramirez, and I went 100 cheaper, and I put Austin Riley in that spot for the home run upside. But I like the discount that we're getting compared to Sale, compared to especially Peralta and Joe Ryan at the top. Blake Snell at 91 is 200 cheaper, but I like the upside a little better for Yamamoto here. So I think it's a pretty decent spot. Going up against the Mets, team that we've gotten to a little bit through the season, fearsome power hitter in the heart of the lineup in Pete Alonso, who's got 6 home runs already this season, a 290 ISO, a 153 WRC plus. Francisco Lindor struggling badly to start the year. Beatty has been good. He might not be in the lineup. I know he's banged up. Francisco Alvarez, totally gettable for strikeouts. So it's just a lot of it's a good player, but hasn't been great this year kind of situations for the Mets at the top, and then some more gettable guys down toward the bottom. They are a top heavy lineup. So I think it's a gettable spot here for Yamamoto at price on both sites. I don't know how much Mets I would grab. Considering his strikeout upside, 31.8% over his 16 innings and 4 starts, it just doesn't look like a great Mets spot. Wouldn't knock me out of my chair if they got to him. He hasn't been perfect he hasn't been perfect in his first 4 starts in the show, but there's a reason he got the $500 million or whatever it was from the Dodgers. He's very, very good, and we haven't seen him at his best yet. So I'll take that spot on the pitching side. And then if I did stack up Mets against, at least you're getting a couple guys at the top for pretty cheap prices. Nimmo getting on at a 341 clip, has 2 home runs, a 110 WRC plus, just a 217 average, 377 slug, 159 ISO, surrounding the decent on base and the production. I like Brandon Nimmo, but not in this spot. Let's put it that way. 3 homers, 3 steals for Marte, off to a pretty good start. 110 WRC plus, but again, not the spot. The price is right, but not a good spot. Lindor for 47.29 is difficult to pass up and say that it's not a bargain price, but he's just been so bad to start this season. 151, 259, 219, .068 ISO, a 48 WRC plus, 1 homer, no steals. I believe wholeheartedly that he's too cheap in a vacuum and that he's going to turn things around for the season. I have no issue saying that. But it might not be the right spot to take that shot DFS-wise today. You're just all right, today's the day. I'm going to put my stamp on it and put my money on it that Francisco Lindor turns things around against a guy who is most likely one of the best pitchers in the entire world. Seems like a stretch. Alonso, if I'm one-offing anybody, he is over the magic number for home run upside. There is that. He'd be the guy from the Mets if I'm grabbing anybody, but I don't love it. Pete, not elite for avoiding strikeouts, but not one of these power hitters that's 30+% strikeout rate. Pretty decent for all the home runs that you get out of him, and knows how to draw a walk. Brett Beatty is very cheap if he's in the lineup. 305, 359, 373 to start his season. Alvarez does have all that catcher power. Hasn't been showing it off so far this year. Just a 130 ISO, 1 home run on the board. Pretty bad triple slash. McNeil, contact hitter. Stewart, a little bit sneaky, maybe from late for lefty power. 320 ISO in his 34 plate appearances, 2 home runs on the board, a stolen base. Not the least interesting of the Mets hitters. It's just, again, not a good spot, not a stack that we really want all that much. And then Harrison Bader at the bottom, think what you want. I don't really like him that much. 288, 327, 365, a homer and 3 steals to start his year. I do think you could take the Dodgers against Sean Manaea. They stack up pretty much 1 through 9. This is probably roughly the version of the lineup that we'll get. Maybe somebody gets a day off. But we'll probably get the multi-positional Chris Taylor. Andy Pajes for 2,600, 2,200 is still very interesting. Nothing really productive over his first 7 plate appearances, but a lot of power throughout the minors from the right side of the plate. So for price, I don't mind that because he helps you average down the other guys, and there's some lurking upside here. Got to change Will Smith again. Through the middle of the lineup, well, Enrique Hernandez also offers cheap multi-position eligibility. That's basically all he does at this point. Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, and Will Smith, premium bats for fairly effective prices. This is not the correct Will Smith price. Let me just get that on here. Change it now so that I don't forget to do it when I update the site. So yeah, Will Smith is priced very effectively, actually at 3,300. For a cleanup hitting catcher on the Dodgers to be priced at 4,700, 3,300 when he's got the track record that Will Smith has, when he's off to a pretty decent start with the bat, 348, 382, 449, creating runs 29% better than average. That is a low price for Will Smith on both sides. No issues going Freeman and Smith, first base, util on FanDuel. Love him as a catcher option on the DraftKings slate if he's in the lineup. There's a chance you get him to get the day off and you get Austin Barnes in there, but probably going to be a Will Smith day. And then these top three guys, I'm pretty sure you guys have all heard of, and they're all pretty good at baseball. Freddie is a little bit underpriced, considering that this is Freddie Freeman, 3,500 on FanDuel. That's compelling. Good reason to go to the Dodgers. 122 WRC plus for Freddie, despite a little bit of struggle for him out of the gate. 276, 398, 368. Still getting on at nearly a 400 on base. This isn't a bad batting average. It's just we expect Freddie to be, well over 300 hitter. Not a ton of power yet, but everything here is fine. It's just not Freddie Freeman the elite. That's why he's 3,500. DraftKings still believes at 59. But any of these three guys combined with any of these three guys, however you can put it together, is great. And then you've got a really good option down here to offset some pricing. And kind of another one given the multi-position of it. Chris Taylor, a lot of success against lefties in his career, just not doing anything so far to start this season. Two negative guys at the bottom of the projected lineup. So Yamamoto, big yes. Mets bats, not really. Sean Manaea, not really. Not at the $9,000 asking price. And then Dodgers bats, yes, but they're expensive against a good pitcher. So not a top priority spot for the Dodgers either. Last game up, hour 50 in. Hit that like, subscribe, etc., etc. rotoscouts.com for all your projections. And the article, by the way, will be back on Tuesday. Didn't have enough time to knock the article out today. And won't be around on Monday. So no show, no article on Monday, but we'll be back in full swing next Tuesday. And we'll have all the projections and usual content will be up on the site every day between now and then. Go check out AceMind, acemind.io. Our sim partners, optimizer. Not going to run through the whole thing again. Not that there's copy to read. I'm just talking here. It's just us. But acemind.io. Go check those guys out. Promo code rotoscouts gets you 20% off your first month. And the first 3 days over there are always a free trial for them. Great product. Like those guys a lot. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Monty going in his first start of the year. Don't know what we're getting innings-wise. As I said at the top of the show, just 7 2/3 over his 2 AAA starts. Took a long time to find a job. Making his first start of the year here. In the AAA outings, kind of bumpy. 10.57 ERA with a 5.25 xFIP. Also had a 10.57 strikeouts per 9 number in those two starts. But we're talking about 7 2/3 for a proven pitcher against AAA hitting. Last year, 21.4% strikeouts, a 3.20 ERA, 4.02 xFIP, 188 2/3. Right in line with who Jordan Montgomery is. No real surprises in there. No real downside in there, no real upside in there. Probably over time has proven himself a better major league pitcher than a DFS pitcher. There are strikeouts in the Giants lineup, so I could see him having a successful day. It's just, is that a successful day over 4 innings and thank you very much, go sit down, we'll finish the game for you? Or is it upside to maybe about, the 80 pitches that we're expecting? Does that get him through 5? If the prices were reversed and we could get to 5 on DraftKings, I'd be talking about 83 being all right for him. But at 92 on DraftKings, I don't know that we're getting 5. I don't know that we're getting a shot at the win. 83 on FanDuel, I certainly don't think we're getting 6. We could. It's not out of the question. He's also been a guy who, can pitch deep into games. But I think it's dicey to expect anything like 6 innings and a quality start here. It's also not a bad Giants club on the other side, especially against lefties. Very platoon-oriented. If you're considering the Giants stacked, you will probably have to sweat some pinch hitting in there, especially if they roll out that platoon-oriented, extremely right-handed Austin Slater type lineup, like what we've got projected here. They're not totally uninteresting, getting into the pen and all, but not the highest priority spot either. Not really great home run marks going up against Montgomery. Project out just okay. They're very cheap though. FanDuel, DraftKings, both sites. Giants are very, very cheap. So maybe a good one to keep in mind for a little bit of value. And then Blake Snell, 2 starts so far for him. 3 innings in the first one, 5 strikeouts. 4 innings in the second one, 4 strikeouts. In that first game, he gave up 3 earned in the 3 innings on 3 hits. Second game, gave up 7 earned on 6 hits across 4 innings. Probably just not fully rounded into form yet. If that trend continues and he goes to the 5th inning here, I still need him to strike out a bunch of these Diamondbacks for the money that they're asking for. I don't know. I don't know that I would play Blake Snell on either site. I don't believe that the projection is all that far off, but for the money, for where he stacks up against other pitchers salary-wise, doesn't look like a priority to me. This Diamondbacks team for the season so far, 16.9% strikeout rate. I don't know if Devin's in the chat, but he probably has the strikeout rate against lefties handy. But they're difficult to strike out. A lot of their key hitters, very low strikeout rates. That's also with a high strikeout rate for Christian Walker, for who he typically is. Last year, just 19.2%. So far this year, 26.7%. They also know how to draw walks on this team. Some decent walk rates in here. Okay walk rates this year, or last year rather. And Blake Snell, one of his issues is definitely walking a few too many. 11.8% walk rate so far this year in the 2 starts. That's very small, obviously. 13.3% with his 31.5% strikeouts, though, last year, over 180 innings, 32 starts. 9.5% in 24 starts the year before. So Diamondbacks just do their thing here and frustrate Blake Snell a little bit. Could lead to a short start. Could lead to an interesting spot for the D-backs. But if anything, I think it just kind of eliminates Blake Snell, or at least knocks him down a few pegs for the money that they're asking for. I think considering the short start and all the variables here, he should probably be a little bit cheaper. It's tough to get to him at that price. I don't know that leads to D-back stacks either, though. I do like a number of these hitters. I think they would have to exploit those walks, create a few additional opportunities, and then obviously you have the part about somebody actually coming through. They'd be like a lower priority stack that I think is a good team just facing a really good pitcher. And if he's on form, forget it. That's you've wiped out those 5 positions in your lineup. Maybe better for mini stacks, maybe some one-offs. But yeah, pretty low priority. That said, Ketel Marte, 5 home runs, a stolen base, a 153 WRC+. Lourdes Gurriel, 5 home runs, 2 stolen bases, a 129 WRC+. Walker, I mentioned the strikeouts already, 3 home runs, 247, 389, 384, creating runs 24% better than average. Eugenio Suarez has a ton of power against the lefty. Randall Grichuk, a little bit of historical right-handed power against the lefty. Gabriel Moreno, down to 224, 333, 327. Probably not the spot for him. Still love the talent, though. 3,500, 2,800 for Blaze Alexander. 2 home runs, a stolen base, 136 WRC+. Again, another guy, probably not the spot for a young player facing Blake Snell, if you get anything approaching peak Blake Snell. But Alexander's a guy to keep in mind with this team. And if you go to this team today, for contrarian reasons, for the fact that they're affordable, they're not exactly cheap, but they're affordable. Alexander's a guy to keep in mind, much more so than Kevin Newman at the bottom of the lineup. All right, guys. Top to bottom, backward and forward. Pitching board one last time. Love Joe Ryan at the top on both sites, and I think he's underpriced on DraftKings. Chris Sale, tough opponent, but I believe Chris Sale's a dominant left-handed pitcher over time. We're not projecting him through the roof. That's a respectable, good projection for a good starter against a good team. Could fail, but I like the path to success. Easily skippable, though, because we've got a lot of options like Yamamoto, who I like a lot, especially at the 93 on FanDuel. But 96, he's one of the guys right in this mix of pitchers. Only in this group, I think Tristan McKenzie is mispriced on DraftKings. He should probably be a little bit cheaper to get him away from these guys. Snell is probably actually a little bit, just because we don't know the innings in that Arizona team. So it's really at the top here. But all these prices, this one's cheap. These are effective. Peralta, love him on DraftKings at 95. Just hate the price and the way that it works with all the other prices on FanDuel, but could easily go out here and put up the highest pitching score. Snell, we just talked about it, but again, I don't think you're necessarily seeing the innings, and don't love the opponent for him. McKenzie has just been bad to start the year. I'm a little bit concerned there. In other situations, we would be talking a lot about Tristan McKenzie against the Athletics team, but the strikeouts just haven't been there. The form hasn't been there yet. Flaherty and Schmidt from the mid-range are the two mid-range SP2 candidates for me on DraftKings. I think they're playable on FanDuel, but they're lower priority than a lot of these guys. Sean Manaea is a tough ask at 9,000 on DraftKings, and he's kind of a why would you at 76 on FanDuel. It's not impossible for him to go 6, find some strikeouts, and have a good game here, but there's so many better candidates for that single starter share on FanDuel. Monty, I don't think we're getting the innings out of to justify the pricing. Waldron, you could roll the dice on the Waldron play at 78 on DraftKings, given where he projects. 75 on FanDuel. It's another, I don't think so. Why would you kind of a spot, especially with Toronto projecting the way that they are and me kind of wanting to get to them. Jadiel on DraftKings for 5,000. Kind of interesting. Not a good strikeout matchup, but he seems to have pretty good stuff. Big test for him. But he's the only guy really in that bargain bin that I would go to. I wouldn't pay $1,500 more, certainly for Heaney against Atlanta. Maybe you could pay $1,600 more for Kramer against Kansas City, but then you're already approaching the territory for some of these $7,000 guys. Not that great a value price. Marsh against Baltimore, no thank you. Boyle against Cleveland, no thank you. I think he gets Clevelanded to death. Gibson against Milwaukee, probably I would jump from here to there in the bargain bin, weirdly. Not that there's a lot of daylight between this projection and that projection. I just think maybe at 73 you get a little bit more potentially effectiveness out of Gibson, but it's really low end, and I'm not recommending it. I'm just speculating if I was building 150 DraftKings lineups, maybe he gets into 5 of them. Alexander, and this game is canceled, and Alexander's a big no for me against the Yankees. Home run board. Expect to see a lot of Braves. Probably some Yanks. Toronto. Judgy at the top of the board. Love that spot, 17. Man, that Yankees lineup's going to be crazy good when he gets going. Vladdy Guerrero, like I said, was going to make him the home run pick of the day, but I opted to go for Ryan O'Hearn, who slots in... The hell's O'Hearn? I thought I just saw him. There he is, 9.25. So I went down board a little bit. Like I've said, I don't love always going to stars. Austin Riley was the guy that I picked for that third base one-off share that I was talking about. You've also got Olsen, Ronnie Acuna right there. A couple other Yankees with Soto and Stanton right there. A couple other Blue Jays. Springer's there. Where's Bo? Bo's also over the magic number. Torkelson showing a little bit of upside, but that's a bad hitting environment. Detroit, Minnesota helps the pitchers there. The Orioles, I like the Orioles for power. Gunnar and Santander above the magic number, but a few guys lurking around it. O'Hearn was one of them. Mountcastle's around here somewhere. There's Adley. Mountcastle's in here somewhere. There's Mountcastle. So a lot of guys, two a little bit above, not all the way at the top of the board, but then another 3 guys immediately below the magic number. Pretty appealing there. I think that's about it, gang. Everything's up on the site. We got to go get some updates in. 5:30. Got plenty of time to do it. If you're looking for NBA, I'll throw some quick NBA projections up for the 2-gamer since I've got some time. Not a priority at this point, but those playoff games are easy enough to do. So I'll knock that out real quick after I update the baseball projections. But that said, you guys absolutely rock. Thank you, Cujo. Oh, yes, Larry, I am. There you go, buddy. Larry, always a step ahead. I didn't see that question before I said that. Larry's a step ahead. Anthony Taylor, I wish baseball would have 7 p.m. Eastern starts so I can catch the live shows. Baseball does have... Oh, yeah, that's a baseball. Baseball does have 7 p.m. Eastern starts. 7:05, 7:10, but it's right around there. That's about it from the chat. No lingering questions, no business to take care of. So I'm going to wish you guys a good weekend. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Back for shows and article on Tuesday. Everything else will be in place. Projections, home run picks, top stacks, etc., up on the site all weekend long and Monday. See you guys.